So, Moisés, a few weeks ago, you had applied to become Fox's chief World Cup watcher to spend 104 games inside a plexiglass cube, which turns out to be a little bit nicer than they had sold it. But unfortunately, you were not chosen. Two dudes I'd never heard of got chosen to jointly do it. I'm just wondering if it was you, what would be some highlight reel moments for you in terms of your reactions, and why does it start with you in a Hervé Renard styled white starch shirt with two buttons undone watching
Well, I mean,
Tunisia lose to
for
Japan for nothing?
for accuracy's sake, I did mention that I was going to apply for that, and I didn't because then I
Oh,
remembered that it would force me to live the rest of my life as having been Alexei Lawless's coworker, and that's something that I'm just going to leave to Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Thierry Henry and Rebecca Lowe. The guys who got hired for it, look, they have a few 100,000 more followers on TikTok than I have. I think that might have been a piece of what they were looking for. For
maybe.
me, if I were to make a cardboard palace of me and my cats watching 104 games of soccer, which is a version of what's happening, I think a lot of hoodies. I don't know that I'm doing the full Potch in Europe era of full suit vibe in terms of my personal hell studio that I take in all the games in. If I'm wish casting, if it had been my space to make my own, maybe sponsored by MySpace, maybe they're looking to make a comeback too. Who knows? I would need a kitchenette. I would need a runner to bring me ingredients from a nearby bodega. There'd be a lot of live cooking. I think there'd be some asados, depending on the day. For me, it's sure. I'm trapped in there, but there's got to be there would have to be some freedom to throw something of a block party. I have not partaken in any of the content that's been created thus far.
Yeah, me either.
Not because I think it'd make me sad or jealous or angry or any combination of the three, but just because I'm so damn busy watching way too much soccer.
Emergency podcast. Verde did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. Ecuador cannot score a goal to save their lives. We have some feel-good stories from some quote-unquote minnows in this tournament, which we'll get to. We have a full slate of games here on this Father's Day. Shout out to all the fathers out there. And Moisés, how are you doing? Sounds like you are watching maybe even more than I am. I'm watching some games in full. I'm getting some little glimpses here and there of some others. Obviously, an 11 p.m. start time is too late for this aging man here. So did not get to watch Japan-Tunisia last night, but did see some highlights, and that was impressive.
The Telemundo commentary, less issues with it than I have the English commentary in previous years, which I mostly would watch along because that was what other people were watching. And I'd be like, wait, what are they talking about? Okay, I might as well just watch this in English. And then could not suffer every match in English in previous years because that's no way to live. Learn Spanish. It's not that hard. It turns out when you watch a whole lot of soccer in Spanish, a lot of the terms are the same. Most entertaining thing about last night's Japan match against Tunisia, random insertion of Japanese words. Sugoi! Banzai! Telemundo
Nice.
is really doing the job. It just, in general, we haven't recorded since the tournament started. I think going back to, and people can run it back, this is not me revising the record. I am thrilled that the U.S. did not show up the way that for decades we have been trained to worry that they would, playing up or down to opponents, being wildly inconsistent. There was a possibility that they would get grouped, but that version of the U.S. did not show up. The version of the U.S. that showed up is one that has taken to heart everything that a multi-generationally meaningful coach has drilled out of what I think is a too stubborn U.S. Soccer Federation. And I think that before we get to the feel good and feel bad stuff, the general thing about the vibe of the host nations being the US, Canada, and Mexico, who all three have different versions of their stories and how they want to take this hosting duty as an opportunity to progress things for themselves as soccer nations. What a world of difference from Qatar, which is all about sports washing. Let's be honest.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And again, I have not fond memories of that tournament on several different levels.
This is something that may even play into one of your lists. It's not officially on one of my lists. I've been thrilled with the 48 team setup because we're seeing more of the actual world. Oh no, it's over a month of soccer. Oh no, I'm so sad. All this soccer. Oh no, 39 days of soccer. Steak too juicy, lobster too buttery. What a terrible problem to have. Oh, your diamond shoes are too tight. Oh no, there's so much soccer. The thing going in that as much as anybody, myself included, for whom the words the U.S. could get grouped across their lips, we've all been painted with the exact same brush, that we're all as crazy as Ogden, who was saying that Turkey was going to be the killer of the group against the U.S., and the U.S. had to watch out. Mauricio Pochettino had done nothing to establish an atmosphere of love or whatever it is. I think a lot of the same people painting with that broad of a brush have still been very vocal about how 48 teams, this is a disaster. It's the worst. It should be 32. Without this expansion to 48 teams, I don't think that it feels this big as expansive. For me, the Olympics being 2 weeks feels like way too compressed an amount of time for
Agreed.
all of that. If you're doing something every 4 years for the sport of soccer, inviting more teams to the table, we could interrogate the exact who would have made it, who wouldn't have made it. But I don't feel like Scotland is necessarily a lock for actually being in this tournament. I don't think that Curaçao, for another example, various other examples that have been really big highlights for people who went, in some cases, Americans not even knowing what these countries are, what continent they're part of. To me, the World Cup should be something of a learning experience. To comments you made on a previous episode about people wanting people to be able to distance themselves from the politics, I took that to mean enjoy the tournament and not have to focus on all the bad stuff that's happening in the world at all times. Right. Because there's got to be silver linings in a world of dark clouds, right? And that, to me, has been the biggest win among, admittedly, a lot of not great stuff going on in many different ways. To me, the tournament so far has been proving that I don't want to hand it to FIFA, and you don't have to hand it to FIFA, just like you don't have to hand it to the worst people you've ever met in any context. But the expansion of 48 teams, I think, is working. Sure. All about money. Sure. Greed. Yes. I'm sorry. It's FIFA. It is literally all about money and greed. This isn't new. I would rather the thing that is all about money and greed be a little bit more inclusive, because that gives more people an opportunity to be at the table and boo things that people hate and make a visible demonstration against things that people want to change. I think amplifying the platform has been good for this tournament in the just over a week that we're into it.
Yeah, I'm mostly in agreement with you here. The one thing that I don't necessarily like with the 48 team format is just the confusion around third place teams and who's going to advance. Like, for example, a few days ago, I thought, Bosnia and Herzegovina versus Qatar is going to be a meaningless game, but it turns out that Bosnia and Herzegovina could very well be the team that the U.S. faces in the round of 32. Yeah. So that's a little confusing. That's hard to sort out. Even like the soccer-wise experts seem a little puzzled as to what's going on there.
I think even some of the soccer-wise experts have been confused as to whether suspensions carry over into the round of 32, even though cards don't. Yeah. And just to state it for the record, yes, cards reset at the round of 32, but if somebody picks up a second yellow and is eligible for suspension, they have to serve that suspension in the round of 32 games. So, knowing what we know now about the U.S., I think you can expect that anybody on a card is going to be benched for that last group stage game, because there's no reason to put them in danger of suspension for the round of 32.
Right. And There were some cards flying in that U.S.-Australia game
few,
for sure, especially in that second half where the Socceroos tried to gum things up a little bit. But yeah, I had confidence that the U.S. was going to get out of this group. And as it turns out, Paraguay and Australia were not the world beaters that some were trying to make them out to be. Oh no, Paraguay is incontinable. Oh no, Australia has a low block that the U.S. is going to find it hard to break down. And I mean, those 2 goals against Australia in the first half were kind of fluky. But again, a lot of it had to do with just the gumption and the fight that the U.S. had and imposing their will on Australia in that first half. And yeah, it was heartening to see my formative hometown of Seattle show out as well as they did. Yeah. I was worried that some of the teams that qualified were not going to be up to the challenge. We're going to get into some feel-good stories. We love underdogs here. So we love to see small island nations rise up, and some of those have found their way into my feel-good list. There have only been a couple of teams that I think just out and out should not be here, but in terms of kind of how they're playing, in terms of being up to the challenge. But yeah, like you, I embrace that we have 48 teams and we have more nations represented and we have more wonderful fan bases enjoying all the things that the U.S. has to offer in junky popular culture.
And Mexico. There are a lot of people worldwide that are experiencing poutine for the first time and tamales for breakfast for the first time. Another thing on the U.S. thing, because this is part of our general assessments of stuff, anytime I say anything that can be remotely detected as critical of Christian Pulisic, people lose their friggin' minds. So, warning in advance, I'm going to say something remotely critical of Christian Pulisic. The thing that worried me the most going into this tournament was there'd be a lack of synchronicity between the players and the coach. Yeah. As we have seen in the lead up to this World Cup, which is where a lot of my anxiety came from, where a lot of people's sense memory anxiety was being summoned from, where it was like, it seemed like the old ways of, well, we've got to build the roster around the mega superstar. And Christian Pulisic is not Lionel Messi. He's a very good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's bad. But I don't think you build all of the tactics of this squad, of this roster, whatever version of this roster was going to get it locked around exactly Christian Pulisic. Yeah. And Pulisic going out injured is a great example of why. The performance in the first match, incredible. Incredible thing to watch. A literal once-in-a-century change to what I think is the personality of the men's team. Huge. But to me, it was more important that second match showed that they can lose a Christian Pulisic for a match, maybe a couple matches, who knows? Right. And not be completely hobbled and not be completely out at sea, where they have their one playmaking guy, their one heliocentric guy around whom all of their fortunes revolve. I will find it humorous if he is out for more than a couple games and the advertising and marketing continues to center him, even though he's not doing anything. The victory of the second game, he was all over a bunch of the social media images, even though he wasn't even on the bench for it. Right. And okay, it's nothing against him personally, but I think it's going to be interesting seeing perceptions and perspectives evolve around the U.S. men's national team, not having to have who is the guy, who is the Michael Jordan of this squad during this cycle, who is the one GOAT, who is going to take the crown from Lionel Messi. We don't have a player like that in the United States. We just don't. And that's no shade on Flo Balogun either, or like any of the other really great players that are on the U.S. team. I am floored that as many more things as could have gone wrong, because various things have definitely gone wrong, that there were not bigger fires all over the place. That's the big thing to me.
Yeah, I had confidence that Balogun was going to have a really good World Cup. I thought that he was going to be the leading scorer. Seeing Alex Freeman step up has been great. Weston McKennie, I think, has had a really strong tournament. Gio Reyna, only some limited appearances, but I got to learn what a Trivela was. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know a foot could actually do that. So on that goal, that was pretty incredible. That was fun to watch. I watched the match against Paraguay at home. I watched the Australia game In Cahoots for the first half, which was chaotic.
I made a jaunt out to In Cahoots during the Brazil-Haiti match. It was a sea of canary yellow. It is a lively block party kind of atmosphere. I was out at Auditorium Shores for the opening match against Paraguay, and the U.S. had put the game away. People had started filtering out, wanting to beat traffic, wanting to beat the garage. But the people who were still there was still most of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And that crowd exploding for Gio Reyna was an amazing thing to behold. It was absolutely glorious. And I was taking video because I was like, oh, I want to get the moment the last whistle goes. And I just happened to get that goal going in and everybody losing their minds. And it was a special moment. When we last recorded, I said, get out there and find your place, find your people, figure out where people that you care about and you get along with. If, like me, you don't always feel comfortable in all American Outlaws spaces, just because a bar is necessarily blessed as an American Outlaws watch party venue, doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad time. You know, the relentlessly chanting USA, USA, USA chuds that you want to stay away from, just don't go to that bar. Go to Hop Squad. Hop Squad's been a great atmosphere, according to everybody I know who've been there on a regular basis. They've got a big, beautiful, bright LED screen in, and everybody's been having a good time. The absolute scenes, the people paying attention to this stuff, not just because the U.S. is doing well, but because the whole world is involved. It's really creating this. The NBA finals are over, and I'm sure there's other stuff going on in the world, but there really is this vibe of this is what's happening. This is what everybody's paying attention to. The various ducks that are being adopted for different countries after Mexico led the way with Merlin the duck. There's memes galore. There are incredible screenshots. There are players picking up refs' watches and getting sanctioned for it. I forget what team the guy was on even, but the ref's watch falls off. A player picks it up and puts it on.
I missed this.
I just randomly saw it on social media at some point last night. I forgot to even note what it was. That's funny. There's so much going on that there's something interesting happening every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And you bring up the NBA finals, which, damn it, why'd you have to bring up the NBA finals?
Hey,
I was very kind of crushed bit by bit through that 5-game series. So as a Spurs fan, that was not fun. I was also in New York during games 1 and 2. So of course, very, very happy for the Knicks fans. They are definitely enjoying this. But yes, I'm very happy that we are focused on soccer now.
Do we want to talk about feel good stuff before we dig into the land of pessimism?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go from 3 to 1 and you can match mine. And of course, we have not consulted with each other beforehand, but I imagine that we are going to have some overlap because that is just how we are. So number 3, I had a Curaçao's draw last night. So of course, a CONCACAF nation off the coast of South America. You probably know Eloy Room, former Columbus Crew goalkeeper, and
who got dropped because he was anti-vaccine.
Right. There is that. But nevertheless, a feel-good story from a country whose anthem declares them a boulder in the sea. I like this on 2 levels. One, it's a minnow.
That's a bad translation. The anthem is not written in English, Phil. It's written in Papiamento.
I know. So on 2 levels. So one, just of course, this is a underdog that stepped up and got a result, which was maybe unexpected. I had a feeling it was going to be a scoreless draw because Ecuador, as we mentioned, seem incapable of scoring now. They've got Enter Valencia, not the timeless Enter Valencia, as it turns out. Ecuador was, of course, a kind of hipster dark horse pick to go far in the World Cup, and it looks like they might not get out of the group now. They have 1 point and 0 goals through 2 matches. Of course, Ivory Coast beat them in the opener. Ecuador still has to face Germany, which of course won 7-1 against Curaçao in that opener. But Curaçao's goal was a very special moment, of course, for those fans. And then got a late goal to beat Ivory Coast 2-1 yesterday. So it looks like Germany is doing Germany things and don't like Ecuador's chances against them now.
Yeah, mentioning Germany, the giants of Europe. We'll see as we record. Spain has not played Saudi Arabia yet, so who knows? Who knows if others will regress to the mean of what's expected and join Germany and France where they should be competing.
Yeah, we'll get that out or try to get that out before the 11 a.m. kickoff for that match, but you might have this maybe soundtracking your watch.
Maybe.
I mean, just turn down the volume if you're watching the English language one, right? So and if you want
But yeah, the Curaçao story, it's special and interesting, and this is a tiny nation, ostensibly still part of the Dutch Commonwealth, and that anthem that you mentioned is something that was originally written by a Dutch priest, and it double and triple underlined how all of the colonies reflect their great fatherland, and then was later rewritten by actual Curaçaoians. And the Boulder in the sea, not an accurate translation. It's more accurately, there's a lot of imagery around Curaçao, around other Caribbean nations, Aruba being another one. These are things that I learned while incredibly bored at a film festival in Aruba about 15 years ago.
Okay.
By the
Dropping
way.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Nice.
But there's something about the image of the steadfastness of being a rock, of being something that cannot just be washed away. They are a tiny but mighty nation. And I think it's beautiful what we're seeing from these tiny but mighty nations. Côte d'Ivoire is, I think, better positioned than others of these underdogs out there that people maybe initially were like, oh, come on. What are they known for? Chocolate farming? And it turns out Côte d'Ivoire is not that bad. They can actually score goals. The Cabo Verde story is along
We're
these
gonna get there.
lines. Yeah.
We're gonna get there. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is, and this is me literally segueing to it, and I took a more general stance of, I'm glad that the tiny underdog nations have proven me right. You've got a story for Cabo Verde, for Côte d'Ivoire, for Curaçao, for other countries, and I'm not saying that I'm supporting Qatar, but Qatar included, doing unexpectedly well. Once against Switzerland.
We're gonna get to Qatar, believe you me.
There's something interesting about the spoiler experience for some of these nations where I've seen the criticism of, well, they can't score goals. Well, you're looking at radically more impoverished, under-resourced nations that, if you want to look at sport, if you want to look at football as an expression of international relations, when you look at these former colonies of major colonial powers being able to push back against empire that they can even defend is something that inspires, I think, something interesting and something hopeful in a difficult time for a lot of people, as the Strait of Hormuz keeps getting open and closed and open and closed. It seems like every 12 hours. I think there's something inspiring about the fact that these countries, that richer, more powerful nations would like to just write off, refusing to go gentle into that good night. I think it's really one of the best things going about the tournament so far.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. My number 2 is Canada's win. So there is a however with this. There is a feel bad story on the other side of this. But to see them win 6-0, to see them just roundly defeat Qatar, who only had one pass into the opponent's box the entire time, as a half Canadian, very heartening to see not only their first World Cup win in their history, but also a dominance which not necessarily assures that they're going to win the group, because I think they can at least get a draw against Switzerland. And it looked like Switzerland had a goal differential buffer against Bosnia and Herzegovina, but as it turns out, Canada got an even bigger buffer. But just to see all those players rising up and doing well, and obviously Jonathan David with the hat trick was fantastic in that game, but other players stepped up too. And Alphonso Davies hasn't even seen a minute yet. So very excited about Canada's prospects in all of this. And again, just seeing the Vancouver fans turn out and seeing that kind of soccer atmosphere in a city that not only deserves to be a cradle of the Canadian national team, but also continues to deserve to need and deserve their own MLS team, which apparently things are progressing decently, we hear. So we are hopeful.
Yeah, my number 2 actually also sort of halfway dovetails into this too, where I love seeing that the 3 host nations, where going forward, I don't know how Saudi Arabia is going to run one of these by itself. I love that the first real 3 host nation job, all 3 host nations there is something meaningful and interesting and powerful going on. Yes, even though the final matches will get played in the U.S., and a lot of people are acting like the U.S. is hosting this and also 2 other countries are pseudo involved. Canada and Mexico are very vividly involved in this tournament. And if you're paying attention to the whole tournament, it's going as well as it could with the proviso of, yes, there's a gigantic amount of corruption and a gigantic amount of money changing hands and a whole lot of crazy stuff. Like initially, the Houston press box was charging members of the press for their food until a stink got raised, and now Houston First is paying for the press to be fed, and they're not being charged concessions prices to do their jobs and cover the games. Figured I'd mention that. But yeah, your ancestral nation of Canada, mine by way of paperwork and domestic partnership. It's a wonderful thing to see them have something of the 94 effect, but they are further along in their soccer journey than the U.S. was in 94.
Right.
It's really wonderful to see it already bearing fruit, where it's like Canada is a soccer nation and people need to stop acting like it isn't. I think Jesse Marsch brushing off that coach after that Qatar win, after what happened to Ismail Kone, that's where Jesse Marsch needed to land. That's absent a time machine. Sure, he wanted the U.S. job. I'm really glad that Jesse Marsch ended up with that team in this moment because it's turning out really well.
And very entertaining on the sidelines, too.
Very entertaining on the sidelines. I think that putting a special focus on Canada, yeah, my number 2 is that the 3 nations hosting thing really is working in a way that makes me look forward to how Spain, Portugal, Morocco, plus the special opening matches in South America in 2030 for the Centennial is going to turn out. I think it works.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, that'll be interesting too, just to see it not only different nations, but different continents, right? So that Uruguay match, of course, that's a nod to the initial World Cup in 1930, the Centennial, but logistically a little weird, but it's fine. They'll pull it off, I'm sure. FIFA will find a way. Number 1 on my list, so again, just in the spirit of underdogs, Cabo Verde, but not only Cabo Verde, and we'll see that story continue today against Uruguay, but just how embraced they were. Like I saw something on Blue Sky, someone about wondering where Cabo Verde is, and then 45 minutes later being invested in their fortunes as they played Spain and just doggedly held on for that draw. I mean, Spain was throwing everything at them. Lamine Yamal came on as a sub. Nico Williams came on as a sub. Spain had all sorts of chances, but 40-year-old goalkeeper Vitinho stepped up. Steven Moreira, of course, a Columbus Crew defender, playing for Cabo Verde, showing some kind of flashes of MLS. We had Messi scoring. We had Musa scoring. MLS is coming on in this tournament, so I guess that's maybe intertwined with Cabo Verde, not only their success, but being fueled by the power of the most incredible soccer league in the world.
Yeah, the visa issue preventing Vozinha's mom being at the opening match.
Not great.
Getting resolved thanks to the intervention of Hakeem Jeffries.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Who went, hey, Marco Rubio, you're going to run for president in a few years. Maybe fix this. It's good that got fixed. It's good that his mom's going to be at the match today and possibly watch her son's team beat Uruguay, who are in a weird headspace.
They really are.
I don't know what's going on with Bielsa's boys. Yeah, there's some very special magic happening surrounding Cabo Verde, and they're the sentimental sweethearts of the tournament. And since they are part of one of the 2 groups that tied both matches in the first round, who knows what absolute chaos could happen today. Day starts with Spain, Saudi Arabia, and then we get a break before Uruguay and Cape Verde at 5. There is a version of today's results that sees Cabo Verde on top of that group.
Right.
And it's not that unrealistic.
I don't know who scores necessarily for Cabo Verde, but
who scores for Uruguay?
I mean, you would think Darwin Nunez, but that didn't happen in this last match.
What happens if Spain, Saudi Arabia draws?
Yeah.
And Cabo Verde finds a way to beat Uruguay at the death.
Yeah. And Spain, Saudi Arabia, drawing is not implausible at all.
No, not at all.
Saudi Arabia, they drew Uruguay in that first game. They beat Argentina famously 4 years ago. They have a way of really getting in the heads of their opponents and getting results that you would maybe not necessarily expect given their world ranking.
Yeah, world ranking, the final tiebreaker in this World Cup.
Oh,
so
really?
My number one.
Oh, okay.
My number one is the vibes thing. It hews so close to my number two about the success of the 3-nation hosting that I was like, well, maybe cobble it into that. No, it's its own thing after last night's Tunisia-Japan match. And that is the wholehearted embrace of East Asia by Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
The love going both directions from Korean and Japan fans in Mexico is a wonderful sight to behold. Last night, I feel like Mexico's longstanding love of anime, they got to show a proper, warm, like home crowd atmosphere for Japan against Tunis, raining on Hervé Renard's parade. I just think it's great seeing Japanese and Korean fans wearing norteño cowboy hats, getting seriously down with the drinking culture, with the food culture, and just embracing one of the great soccer nations on the planet that doesn't have a star over the crest, but who knows? Who knows?
Okay.
Be a crazy thing for a host nation to pull it off. Be even crazier for it to be Mexico, based on a lot of people's estimations. But the way,
two matches, 2 wins.
The way the brackets are coming together, host nations are actually, it seems, getting some sort of benefit out of being host nations and not just being laden with the mantle of, oh, well, it's time for the host nation to bounce out.
Yeah, we have a very real possibility of Mexico versus England in Mexico City for a round of 16 match, which I want to see. I want to see that.
Mexico against England at the Azteca is immediately a top 5 great World Cup fixture in history before the match even kicks. Come on. Like, how do you top that?
Yeah, exactly. That could be fun. How you top that, perhaps, is also the very real possibility of Spain versus Argentina in the round of 32. If Spain falters.
Absolutely wild. I'm amazed that it can happen. I'm amazed that that's potentially in the cards and that one of the two of them will have to go out of the tournament. I'm sure infuriates people. And there are some people who...
Oh, not me.
Oh, not me either. There are some people who will be like, that has to happen. Well, why is Cote d'Ivoire in the tournament? Why is Cabo Verde in the tournament? Spain shouldn't have drawn their opening match against a nothing nation that shouldn't exist. You know, their fault.
Do we want to get into our feel bad stories?
Yeah, let's feel bad, I guess, and punk on them.
I do have an honorable mention, first of all. And that is Justin Trudeau attending the U.S. opening match rather than the Canada opening match.
Mr. Perry.
Because Katy Perry was singing. Ran into Cheyenne, who does the Between Clean Sheets Instagram thing at In Cahoots, and we were talking about that, and she mentioned that women make men do strange things sometimes, and certainly that was of evidence there.
Well, he's not the PM anymore, which a lot of people are happy about, actually.
Yeah, that was an episode in Canada's history for sure. But my actual number 3 is the hydration break commercials. And again, roundly criticized. Obviously, it's a cash grab. It is something that is probably unfortunately here to stay. I haven't been watching as much Telemundo as I thought I would be, but I'm getting to the point where I would like to see the way that Telemundo treats those versus the way that Fox is treating those, where they're slamming in commercials and maybe missing a bit of action on the other side of that. And what it's doing effectively is it's turning 2 45-minute halves into 4 22.5-minute quarters, which it smacks to me too much of commercialized American sports and not down with it at all.
Yeah. It's
not like what it does to the flow.
Yeah. It ruins the flow of the game. This is not the way that soccer is played any other time. And when you've got a guy with an iPad telling the match officials when they're allowed to resume the match on the sideline, I love that it is getting so roundly booed. It is the least popular thing at the tournament. Telemundo is having a lot of fun with it, depending on the commentator. poking fun at it lightly, sometimes heavily roasting Fox for cutting away, thanking their promotional partner, Lay's, who is allowing us to keep your eyes on the action because we at Telemundo do not cut away from the games. We don't know
the action of people drinking water.
Yeah, where when we see him and he looks like this and this, even though we're having to take this pause in the action, we are not going to risk you having to come back from commercial and having missed things, which has happened on the Fox broadcast.
Right, yeah. And Sicko's Committee has rolled out a whole series of Pausa de Hydración merchandise. So you can get shirts, you can get wine glasses.
Yeah, but they're
if you so
terrible.
choose to celebrate.
Yeah, they're terrible designs. They're awful designs. They should be ashamed of themselves doing effectively Redbubble Temu level. Sorry.
Wow.
Sorry, but it's a good joke that could be done with better designs. I'm sorry. A good joke told poorly is not a good joke. I feel Sicko's Committee is biting Telemundo's act and not giving it due enough credit. Yeah. Sorry, they're bad designs. Sorry. Not sorry.
Catch and strays. Okay.
Yeah, it's also,
what's your number 3?
That's also my number 3 is it's nuts. It's stupid. It's the worst thing ever. The people speaking up for, well, the sport's got to adapt for it to take off in the US. No, go to hell. Die in a fire with that. Sorry. Never going to get on board with that. Soccer needs to be made more like NFL or NBA broadcasts. Soccer is soccer. Sorry. What are we going to do? Start putting players in pads and start carrying the ball? What else are we going to do? Where does it end? Where does it end?
I'm surprised this is only your number 3. Okay. My number 2 is Miguel Almiron suddenly turning into a wrestling heel and demonstrating 2 of the kind of more curious rules that have come up in the World Cup this time around. Of course, in the first game, the mistaken identity, the VAR check on his dive, which did turn out to be a dive. It was not a timbering foul, so he got yellow carded for that. And then, of course, in this last game, what is called the Prestiani rule for covering his mouth, making a comment which was untoward toward a Turkey player, and that earned him a red card towards the end of the first half. But Paraguay did get a goal in the second minute of that game and hung on with 10 for a 1-0 win, which knocks Turkey out of the tournament. But again, it's a rule that obviously is trying to address a serious issue, but goes about it in a strange way. But Almiron, once a MLS darling, was able to demonstrate that for all of us and sully his reputation as a result.
Also, my number 2. Yeah, crazy that MLS did a whole episode of their breakaway show that nobody knows exists because nobody knows about any of the other MLS stuff that's in the Apple TV app. But they literally did an episode about Miguel Almiron, and here he is just doing the full heel turn, as you said. The mouth covering thing, the new rules, again, I hate saying these words, but gotta hand it to occasionally FIFA getting certain things right. I don't think of their own volition in this case. I think some of these new rules, they've gotten extensive pressure from powerful member nations, from even match officials. Despite the hydration breaks, we're seeing less stoppage time because of the new rules, because of the sub rule, because of the field treatment rule. There is less. It's not that there's less flopping. There is less flopping affecting the clock and affecting the flow of play. The flow of play is better overall. After what some of us call the Vinicius Jr. incident that led to this mouth covering rule, sure, with the benefit of a time machine, it wouldn't be a problem and he wouldn't have done it in the match itself. That doesn't mean that you don't actually punish based on the rule in the match itself. Sure, like generationally, it's something that we should be fixing in the sport. It should be culturally not accepted. And the way that you start moving in that direction is great. You want to play on the world's biggest stage? You don't get to if you're going to be a bigot of any kind. Doesn't matter what kind.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what he said, but he covered his mouth, so we can assume that it was not good. Also, that was a match that was spiraling out of control because Ivan Barton, that was maybe the worst ref game of this tournament.
Yeah, Yeah. People were worried what was going to happen when Ma Ning got his first assignment. He's known in China as card master. Like, he's brutal with cards and not in a way that ever really makes either team happy.
Right.
But he was a very strict card daddy with his match, and he was not the disaster some people were worrying that he would be. No, it was Barton. It was, oh geez, I keep memory holding his name, the worst Premier League ref in Premier League history. What was it? He had a match the other day. Yeah, there have been some occasionally. There was one day in particular that was especially bad. I think, was it Friday that the officiating was especially bad, aside from the Australia match, which was fine. Yeah, it's been consistently better than I think a lot of people expected.
Right.
But yeah, that match needed the correction before it started spiraling.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. And then my number one, you remember I mentioned Canada's win, and I had a however. That, of course, was Asim Adibo breaking Ismail Kone's leg. Just horrific challenge. He visibly was shaken, felt bad after he had done it, but still he had done it. It was dangerous. It was horrific. Kone is a big loss for Canada. That was a match, again, Qatar had one pass into the opponent's box. They were absolutely overmatched. That was their second red card. Again, just disgusting the way that Qatar played that match. I was infuriated, and I'm going to be very, very glad to see them bounced out of this tournament. As a Canada fan and as a fan of soccer, just very, very unhappy with how that all went down. Even though, of course, the Saliba goal and the celebration after was redemptive, and it was wonderful to see him hold up Kone's jersey, but just deplorable from Qatar. And yeah, disgusted.
Yeah, incredibly cynical from the opening whistle from Qatar. Not going to miss them. And I would love to see their sports washing money just disappear and vanish from the tournament. This was also my number one. Absolutely shaking and shattering to anybody watching it who saw it, and just seeing the way that Kone reacted, even if you couldn't see the break itself. The other aspect of this is, we're both saying, totally fair to be down on Qatar and the way that they showed up to this tournament, the way that they played that game, the way that they conducted themselves, the way that their managers seem to apparently have an issue with Canada hanging 6 goals on them. They deserve to have 6 goals hung on them. They should have had 9 goals hung on them. Let's be honest. There are plenty of completely valid reasons and ways to criticize Qatar. And considering the current political environment, there have been things that have been said that have crossed the line when it comes to their own flavor of bigotry and that sort of thing. Qatar shouldn't be in this tournament because they're wealth nation that is sports washing.
48 teams, though. That's the flip side of that. And they did weirdly do Canada a solid by Switzerland letting them hang around in the first game and getting the late draw, which kind of reset the whole group after Canada had the opening draw. But yeah, just to see it kind of turn in the way it did in 90 minutes and bring up all the issues from the 2022 hosting and all that, right?
Yeah, but my issue is, at the same time, referring to those players as something other than human, that doesn't work for me. I'm glad that has not been the prevailing thing that has surfaced about criticism about them being in the tournament, and it's focused more on the sports washing and the corruption of FIFA. But as the tournament goes on, my hope is that continues to be the case, where that sort of bigoted criticism that is not as valid as the completely valid on its face criticism of why are they here if they didn't actually want to play soccer. If you just show up to play a UFC fight, that's what the White House lawn is for, not the World Cup.
All right. So getting into the rest of the tournament, is there anything that you are seeing that is dissuading you that it's going to be a France-Argentina final? Because that's where, to me, it seems to be moving. But obviously, there are some teams that look like they could shake things up a little bit. Germany, Netherlands. You had mentioned Mexico possibly being able to make a deep run. Of course, the U.S. and Canada now looks like they possibly have some deep runs in play. Although I worry about Davies' health. I worry about overcoming the Kone absence there. But to me, France and Argentina seem like they are the two dominant teams in this tournament and have It's just been one game, but
Yeah.
still they're looking like they're head and shoulders above everybody else in the tournament.
I don't want to see a France-Argentina final for reasons I've articulated previously. I want something new. I want something different. And I think
Right.
that's still potentially in the cards. If you want to go off of stats sheets, if you want to go off of betting markets, I don't think there's anything to dissuade the fact that that still looks likely.
Mm-hmm.
But as we record this, we'll see what happens when Argentina and France play tomorrow. But
Yep.
then they've also got to get through the round of 32 and round of 16 to make it into the quarters. And wouldn't it be wild if far fewer of the giants than expected even make it into the quarterfinals? There have been enough. Cabo Verde in Spain is the one that, sure, it's an outlier on its face. What if it isn't as much of an outlier for this tournament, where it isn't, when you're dealing with, you just add a little bit more game to this tournament, one game can change a lot.
Sure.
I think Canada has the concerns of roster depth and being injury prone. Crazy things happen, and Mexico shows up as a different team some days. But I feel like there's still the potential for surprise from one of the African nations. There's a big thing of resiliency and the fact that knockout games can suddenly knock a major nation out. If Spain or Argentina end up in the round of 32, one of those isn't making it to the round of 16.
Right.
And
exactly,
the
yeah.
one that does make it to the round of 16, how good of shape are they going to be in to make it out of the round of 16 into the quarterfinals? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I feel like all bets are still off about what we're looking at in terms of a final. I don't think a week ago or 10 days ago, people, even the greatest optimists, would have conceived of talking about the United States making it to a World Cup final. But they look absolutely sick. Like, they look France good in terms of being able to knit together and work together. I'm not saying they are as good as France, but in terms of the synchronicity that you see in that squad,
Yeah.
you see that level of togetherness from the U.S. squad, which I don't think even the most optimistic among us saw that definitely being the case before the tournament began.
Yeah, their ability to generate offense. There are only a few teams so far that are really exhibiting that in the World Cup. I would say that the U.S. is better than Brazil at that right now, which
Yeah.
Adam Snavely for Foodie was talking about them essentially having one idea, which is Vinny in the left half space, which that's a good thing to have. But with the injury that they got in the game against Haiti and just, yeah, they to me look like they're vulnerable. Spain, certainly, like I'm still trying to figure out if they come alive and start scoring. That could certainly happen today. But
my prediction for the Saudi Arabia match, which will be happening as people listen to this, is I think Spain is going to be too in their heads about needing to overperform to prove that some nobody African nation, it was a fluke, it was an accident, the turf was wrong, the ball didn't bounce right, or whatever. I feel like there will be a hangover from that match. I don't know about them just showing up against Saudi Arabia like they've completely shrugged it off necessarily.
Interesting. Okay. We will see. And we're still, of course, deep into the group matches, but obviously things will be sorting themselves out over the next week here. So very, very excited to see how this transpires. And my hope is that we get something different than a France-Argentina final. I just feel we're headed towards that. I feel like that's an inevitability. But again, that's why they play the games.
Yeah. You can feel it all you want. I don't know.
So let's talk about some Austin FC news, because there is a little bit of that. We had some scuttlebutt earlier in the week here about Dani Pereira possibly moving to CF Montréal, and then apparently that deal that was proposed fell through. Of course, that's all just kind of rumor mill stuff, but brings up some interesting ideas about what might be happening in the summer transfer window and where the front office as it is currently constituted, of course, without Rodolfo Borrell. Looks like Davy Arnaud and whoever else is in the front office running those things. Just kind of curious to see where that goes. Obviously, we had the Robert Taylor buyout, so that opens up presumably the roster spot that Shemi's going to need if he is still coming over, which it sounds like he is, which will be the last little jigsaw piece puzzle that Rodolfo Borrell engineered on behalf of Austin on his way out here. But just kind of curious about your thoughts on, first of all, just the possibilities of Dani moving, of course, one of the team's OGs, and then just what might transpire this summer, kind of based on that.
When it first cropped up, there was doubt thrown on the source of the rumor. The Moon Tower guys cast some doubt on it because, well, this guy got fired by MLS. Well, so did Adrian Healy. So did a lot of people. But I think more the issue I had with looking at it on its face is a lot of clubs inquire about a lot of players on a constant basis.
Mm-hmm.
Constant basis. Just because CF Montreal was interested doesn't mean that Austin was willing to move him or that there was a number on which they would move him. But inevitably, a rumor that in the absence of actual solid stuff getting thrown around, then people start talking about, well, what if they moved him? I mean, is this an ideal time to go out to market and see what they could get for him? When looking at reworking the midfield a bit, are there better options? Does he want to move? All valid questions. It seems like he and his family are very comfortably settled here, started a charitable foundation,
right,
Dos Toques. The reason it surprised me was if he was going to move, what was going to motivate that? And what was going to make that a good situation for him? I don't know. But then when it comes to roster build, then we're in football manager territory. And it's like, sure, we could talk about that all afternoon, but it didn't feel substantive to me from the jump in the same way that like people keep bringing up the Uzuni to Trabzonspor thing, Uzuni to the Turkish club. The Turkish club, oh, the deal was almost done. Well, people are also using machine translations for Albanian. And as we found with the Curaçao anthem, machine translations aren't necessarily accurate.
So Uzuni is not a boulder in the sea.
He's not a boulder in the sea, being launched via catapult somewhere else. There's nuance to so-and-so made an offer. Okay, so-and-so made an offer. And then what happened? And to the best of my understanding, the next step of that was because they had basically 3 hours to theoretically close a deal, even though the player was agreed on personal terms, then the offering club was suddenly like, whoa, what was that we offered? What if we offered not that? And so suddenly it became can we get a very expensive player at a bargain basement price? How serious were they? How many other offers like that did that same club that is in need of some reinforcements? How many more of those kinds of deals did they float? Who knows? But people are so tied to the mast of the great ship Transfer Uzuni that they just want it to happen no matter what, defying any and all logic. And to me, the Pereira rumor is in a similar category of, I'm sure that club was interested. I'm sure they were. How serious was the actual offer tendered? I don't think that serious.
But it does also make me kind of wonder, okay, are there certain players who feel like they are maybe not going to flourish necessarily in a Jim Curtin system?
Totally fair.
Yeah. So that to me raised my eyebrows a little bit when I heard this coming around. We had all the kind of talk about accountability and measuring recovery runs and things like that. So, and again, to some players, I'm sure that's going to be a challenge where they're going to want to step up and be measured in those ways and be rewarded for that. I can see John Gallagher, for example, being pretty pleased with something like that, but maybe not all the players are. And maybe there is kind of a little bit of a reevaluation that's happening for some of them right now. Like you've been talking about Nico Estevez, and just, again, if there is that change, some people that might be unsettling to some of the players having that kind of change and having to reassess their place on the team, and are they going to be kind of part of the group, as it were. So that to me is something that's maybe coming up here a little bit.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens during this summer transfer window. People are very intently watching, whose Instagram is showing that they're still in Europe. Well, Uzuni was on international duty with Albania.
Right.
Okay.
Possibly got a few extra days, but yeah, I was curious that he wasn't there when other players were.
To me, not curious at all. Like, you go on international duty, you get a few extra days. That's not a new thing. That's not an outlier. That's not a surprise. If he's still there into next week, that is kind of strange.
Yeah. It's the optics,
The optics. Yeah.
Your team is showing players hard at work at training, and then he's on the beach. I know.
The optics, I mean, same thing. It feels like you're still wishing Wilfred Nancy into the head coaching job.
No, not at all.
You're like, well, Wilfred Nancy doesn't have a coaching job yet. And,
I'm very happy with Jim Curtin. But it's just, and I mean, optics being what they are. Yes, you're a player, you're on vacation, you're getting some extra time, you're showing yourself with your kid on a beach somewhere, and that's all fine and well and good. But again, people will
But for somebody like yourself who has been desperately wishing on Aladdin's lamp for Uzuni to be shot into the sun for months now.
I've kind of changed on that a little bit. Like, I understand, like, if he leaves, and maybe that is kind of best for all parties, but this season has shown that he can work to a degree in the system. A team is not overly successful or anything like that, but he certainly has been, without his performance, this team would be worse. And it is possible for this team to be worse.
Yeah, like he has not been the team's big problem. Like, firing him into the sun doesn't actually solve anything. Arguably, I think there are other players that you could say that of. You mentioned Robert Taylor, and just to say it, I'm disappointed that he spent so much time injured, because that initial glimpse that we got at what he could contribute was incredibly promising. And it's players injured. Do you want to blame him for his tendons? I don't know that a player in conversation with their tendons can convince them to not tear.
I mean, I don't know that it was wise to bring him in on the GAM that they brought him in on.
No. And is that on him? I don't know that that's on him.
No, that's not on him, but.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is bringing him in on the GAM that they brought him in on, if he'd stayed healthy, if he hadn't had that initial injury after which he was out for an extended period of time, if he had performed the way that he did in those initial minutes that he played for the club for the rest of that season, I think we would be having a very different conversation about the value of Robert Taylor. But how were they to predict that his knee was going to catastrophically just completely fall out from under him the way that it did? I don't know that they could have predicted that. I mean,
that's what medical checks theoretically do, but
in theory, but again, until somebody tears an ACL, the ACL isn't torn. And I'm not saying that was an ACL tear, but just using that as an example, it's you can do medical checks, but until an injury happens, the injury doesn't happen. And absent a time machine, how do you predict it?
Yeah, but if you are prone to those sorts of things, then you kind of assess that, and you maybe adjust the price accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just that they decided that they were going to use the second buyout on him at this time, so relatively shortly after Burrell left, with a front office that is currently operating without a sporting director, I think it's
telling.
A curious and telling thing.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, in that there is some continuity between those two things. I was the one saying buy out Sabovic. I don't know why you wouldn't buy out Sabovic. Well, the reason to not buy out Sabovic is you've got that heavy of a salary for a player that cannot stay healthy.
Right.
If you can build a market for Sabovic, great. I don't know how you build a market for a player that has been relentlessly injured and is on a number that I don't know how you find somebody to take that off your books for you.
Right, for sure. Let's get into the last thing here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then also Austin FC announced last week that there are going to be some exhibition matches in preparation for the resumption of the season, which of course is going to be July 22nd against Seattle. So Austin's going to play a Liga MX team, Querétaro, on Friday, July 3rd, and then a USL Championship side, Sporting Club Jacksonville, on Wednesday, July 8th. Those are both going to be at St. David's Performance Center, so perhaps a return to Verde Hill, and then they're going to play Charlotte on Wednesday, July 15th at Q2 Stadium. as final tune-up. None of those are officially available to the public. So, and of course, there is that practice on the 18th, which is, but good to see that they're doing some tune-ups. I don't know that this is necessarily the three teams that are going to maybe best prepare them for the resumption of the season, but they are games against other live human soccer players. So in that sense, it's good. And I do like the possibility of some Verde Hill action returning. So
yeah, there's a possibility for some Verde Hill stuff the day before America 250, playing Querétaro. That feels like the most ripe Verde Hill opportunity in quite some time. We'll see if people try to mass on the hill and make it happen. My hope is that they make the most out of these mid-season friendlies, and they're closed to the public for a reason. They want to get some stuff worked out, try out some new stuff. And my hope is that that open practice that season ticket holders have been invited to gives people an opportunity to see the second wind of Austin for the rest of the season.
I think I saw a graphic that called him interim head coach Davey with an E added. So that's
somebody in the marketing department needs to get on their ball.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They're usually better about that. So we shall see. We shall see how that's going to go. As we learned, as we talked about last time that we got together, Curtin will be involved, but Davey Arnaud will be in control, with Curtin maybe whispering in his ear a little bit here and there throughout the remainder of the season. And again, don't know what the rest of this season portends for Austin. I think playoffs are unlikely, but who knows? It's a interesting time. There are 19 games left for Austin, and they're not so far out of playoff places where it's insurmountable. So they could theoretically get in there and get the playoffs and do some things. Just don't necessarily know what, and I guess we'll learn maybe kind of through whatever leaks out in those warm-up matches, kind of where their heads are at.
Yeah, I think all bets are off about the second portion of the season. In normal situations, nothing matters until September, and the season's even longer this year than usual. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm not even comfortable putting a likelihood of whether people should write off playoffs or not. A lot of people, myself included, in advance wrote off the possibility of the United States making a deep World Cup run, and look where we are today. You know what else, Phil? Something we should mention about the days coming up.
Okay.
Los Verdes is in conjunction with Our Copa hosting a watch party this Wednesday for the Mexico-Czechia match at Hop Squad.
Okay.
And preempting kickoff with a Panini sticker trading hang at 6:30 with giveaways from Hop Squad, Los Verdes, and Panini. They got that big, beautiful LED screen all set up for the watch party itself. So go and hang out if you haven't gone out to find a place to hang with folks and you want somewhere to watch the Mexico match against Czechia. Wednesday, 6:30 for the Panini sticker trading, kickoffs at 8. You know where Hop Squad is.
Yes, you do. So that'll be fun. I think I'm going to get out to Meanwhile today at some point.
Nice.
So if people are out there, they've got a big screen. Went there actually for kind of the tail end of Netherlands, Japan, and it was rainy, but Soccer Post was out there, and
Nice.
I don't know, maybe I picked up a France jersey. Maybe that happened. So.
Yeah, Meanwhile set up for the entirety of the tournament, and as people have been there for different watch parties and events, no, it's a great space, and Soccer Post is set up, so if you need to pick up some jerseys and leave with a little less change, then knock yourself out.
Yeah, most of their games are on the big screen. They've got some small screens inside, and then there's a few kind of select games that they are not covering, but they've got a schedule on their site, so you can figure that out. And then, yeah, obviously, it's been heartening just to see a lot of the activity around town, just to see watch parties popping up in different places. And on Verde All Day with the World Cup Daily thing I've been doing, I've been trying to highlight different spots for people's different tastes. Like Victory Lap is not necessarily my cup of tea, but they're doing some interesting stuff. They have something called Kegs on the Lawn every Saturday. So if you are someone who likes kegs on the lawn, then you might consider that as a possibility.
Kegs on the lawn, I thought that was just a sign of a good Saturday night. So as we record this, I've got roughly a day to figure out my mom's June rent, which is 3 weeks late.
Yeah, okay.
Or she gets evicted. So Don't know how I'm solving that, but the alternative is she goes on Texas Medicaid, which is a death sentence. Yeah. So I don't know how I'm solving it. And if anybody out there has any ideas or any means of helping, get in touch. I'm not hard to find. It's been good to have the World Cup as a distraction while watching backup plan after backup plan not pan out. For those who haven't been paying attention, whatritataught.me.com takes you to a post that I made in a newsletter that has been difficult to keep up with while struggling to keep up with the needs of finding help for her care. Running into an issue with my payment processor, I set up a coffee account that I'm going to have all that stuff updated later today so that if people want to help contribute to her care. Yeah, it's been a tough road, and it's been spectacularly unhelpful. The couple of people who occasionally say, well, it sounds like she's just going to have to go on Medicaid. And it's like, thanks, person who I've never met and who has no investment in me whatsoever. Thanks for the advice, but no thanks.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know anything's going on. She doesn't know things are as dire as they are, very much by design. She's taken to rereading James Clavell novels she hasn't read in 40 years.
Okay.
My hope is that somehow or another I find some sort of a solution, either as you're listening to this or over the next 24 to 36 hours, or if anything, just try to buy some more time so that I can try to find something. But thank you to everybody who has contributed and helped up to now, especially the friend who very unexpectedly saved both of our asses for the month of May in buying us that much more time. My hope is that something similarly miraculous happens, because I don't really have another alternative. But thanks for listening. Thanks for paying attention to the newsletter. And thanks for anything anybody can do to help.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Enjoy all the World Cups. Like Moisés said, if you have any ideas, any help, any money you can get, you know where to find him.
At this point, it's straight up money. People hopping on google.com and saying, well, have you tried talking to this organization? Yeah, I've talked to everybody. It's straight up. There is not some magic program. There is not some version of her insurance I haven't paid attention to. The level of care that she needs is private pay only, because of the glorious society that we live in that doesn't believe in a sustainable social safety net for seniors and end-of-life care, or their version of that is something that is just warehousing. There's a great John Oliver piece from last week tonight about the state of elder care in the United States and just how fraught it is. And watching that, it is miraculous that I've found a place that has been great for her thus far, and that is a solid and stable place for her to be. The barrier is the cost. So reach out if you have a way to help, and I appreciate everything in advance.
Okay. And go Cabo Verde.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.